So, yes, I'm the managing editor of New Criterion, and the New Criterion is now a 31-year-old monthly journal of the arts and culture based in New York. We were founded by the art critic Hilton Kramer. Hilton was the art critic for the New York Times and left his post to found the New Criterion in 1981 and 1982. And I think some of the reasons he wanted to found the magazine was because he already identified back in the early 80s what he saw as the kind of dumbing down of criticism, the commercialization of criticism, and also he wanted to write longer form pieces. That's another thing you don't consider when you're writing for a newspaper, is that you have 800 words, and you're always going to only have 800 words. The New Criterion, we can have an essay of 5,000 words. And I joined a decade ago, and what I've been doing for most of that time is writing the Gallery Chronicle, among other things, which has really been a great post for me because it's kind of an open assignment where I get to every month. We're heading home. Where I get to pretty much decide what I want to write about, and I write about it. And it can be one show, it can be a bunch of shows. I've taken the meaning of it pretty broadly, and so that's what got me out here. I didn't start out as someone who would, really wanted to spend my weekends necessarily in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And if you told me I was going to several years ago, I would have said, no, I'm not going to. But I've been covering. My own taste was evolving, and understanding of art is still evolving. And I was writing a lot about the great artists who developed in Soho in the 1970s, many of the artists that you have been interviewing, and really admired their practice, their artwork, and wondered if I got very depressed because it didn't seem like there was anything that similar was going on today. If you just read the headlines, it looks like the art world is basically about box office scores. It's about how much some pop artists sold for at auction. It's not at all what interests me. So when I first started coming out here at the invitation of a curator, Jason Andrew, 3 or 4 years ago, I was really startled and very surprised to find a whole arts community that had taken root out here that very much reflected my own values in art and what I am interested in seeing. One thing that an artist like Thornton Willis, who's one of those great Soho artists I'm talking about, is his abstraction really helped me understand painting better. Looking at it for a long period of time, I really picked up on things that I didn't pick up on at first. And my own taste and judgment developed because of that. And I think all critics who are worth anything, that's the way it has to happen. You're kind of learning on the page. When I came out here, it was a similar development for me. I was, my whole worldview of the art world changed essentially when I realized there was just a vibrant arts community that still valued many of the ideas that I valued, that had a rich studio practice, was quite collaborative, and was not just interested in, let's say, the commercialization of art or turning art into politics. Something separate entirely, something, in my opinion, that goes more to the core of what art is about, which is a kind of somewhat mysterious practice that doesn't have clear-cut answers. And I think it's because it creates these questions that it becomes interesting to look at, and it separates it from other forms. Yeah, we're heading back. We're heading back right now. Okay. So the New Criterion, as I say, was a venue that allowed me to explore out here extensively. I started writing about Bushwick and the small galleries 3 years ago, I guess, maybe a little longer. And what you see out here is a community that's content to be self-sustaining, where most of the artists who have studios out here are not exhibiting at the big Chelsea gallery. Okay, we're heading home right now. They're not exhibiting at the big Chelsea galleries. They're often exhibiting their friends' artwork in their apartment. You know, the whole phenomenon of apartment galleries. It's kind of an ad hoc culture. One thing that's been great about, let's say, the rise of social media is that now, unlike what you had in Williamsburg in the 1990s, you have a system that allows us for this artwork to be broadcast outside of the mainstream press to other artists and collectors. And I don't think it would have been sustainable without, let's say, artists being able to use email or blogs or Facebook to promote their artwork. And that's something that I think we're still understanding. You know, one artist that I follow is Lauren Monk, James Calm, and he does something called the Calm Report, the James Calm Report. And he's done almost 1,000 of these little videos of going to gallery openings and shows, walking through often with the artists, and putting them up on YouTube. He makes no money from it, but it's created an amazing archive that will, in my opinion, certainly be in the archives of American art one day. It's an amazing resource that nothing parallels what he's done, all on his own. I love to see that do-it-yourself spirit, and I think that's what's reflected all throughout here. You know, one thing I'm writing about right now is the history of the 1913 Armory Show. And, you know, we kind of know what the Armory Show is. We kind of know it as shorthand, that basically, you know, this backwards American art scene was dazzled and ashamed by the sophisticated paintings of Europe. And since that time, we've had much better worldview of the art world, and it allowed us to become the art capital. Now, in reality, the scene in 1913 America was very progressive. And, I mean, just look at the fact that this art fair happened because artists, American artists living in New York, were not content with the establishment venues that existed to them. And they said, we are going to create an enormous exhibition of the latest in modern art. And we're going to bring over paintings from Europe that aren't even dry yet. And it's amazing to think that they pulled off the 1913 Armory Show without any institutional support, without any government support or academic support. That's radical right there. The most radical thing of the 1913 Armory Show was the show itself. Even more radical than the artwork that was put on display. And what also should be realized about it was that in 1913, you had many collectors buying up that work. You know, so imagine seeing this work that was so radical at the time, and yet American collectors, many of them understood that and went right in and bought it. Duchamp's new Descending the Staircase was purchased at the Armory Show. Many of the seed modernist paintings in the Philadelphia Museum MoMA came out of the Armory Show. So what that tells me is that, you know, the 1913 Armory Show was the do-it-yourself spirit of the day, of its day. In a way, it was the Bushwick spirit of its day. Something wrong? Enough. Lily, you like going to art galleries? No, I thought you do. Maybe not all the time, right? No. Anyway, it was the Armory Show was the do-it-yourself spirit of 1913, and frankly, our institutions are much more reactionary today than they were back then. I don't think you could there could be this kind of self-generating spirit to create a show of the Armory scale today. And that's sad for me. I mean, I don't think, you know, we like to say we've learned so much since 1913. I think we've forgotten quite a bit since 1913. You know, and we shouldn't be overly smug that all of a sudden we embrace all artwork and know everything that's going on out there. Because I think what happens, for example, in Bushwick, something that has been very slow for the rest of the artwork to pick up on, and the rest of the artwork will never pick up on it. You know, that's the kind of latent reactionary nature of the art world we're in today. Very conservative in a reactionary sense, market-driven. Not at all, in my opinion, what art should be about. So anytime you have these kind of self-germinating kind of artists communities happening, like Bushwick, and there are others in New York and others out in the United States. It's something that really needs to be, I think, explored and explained, and that's what I see my job as doing. Lily, we're going to go over another bridge, okay? Whoa! Right. We're going on another bridge. Yeah, in 1 minute. But a different bridge, okay? Yeah, we're going to go over there in 1 minute. It's coming. I mean, just to give you a sense, I live an hour away from Bushwick, by car or train. Yet, I make a point of trying to get out there as much as I can, every few weekends. And a lot of other people of similar mindset have decided to do the same thing. It's a kind of a gathering place for an alternative art scene. And frankly, the art scene that existed in the Soho in the 70s was an alternative art scene. I think the one you had in Williamsburg was an alternative art scene. The Lower East Side was an alternative art scene. And this is what you have now. 5 years from now, maybe something different. But it kind of moves in a wave that you can follow, kind of radiating from, let's say, Manhattan out. And that's why you have it in these outer boroughs right now. Maybe the Bronx is next. You never know.
Yeah.
But you just, all of a sudden, when you see that density occurring of artists, collectors, gallerists, all converging in one place, something really miraculous can happen in art, and that's why it's important to pay attention closely. I've tried to encourage a lot of the Soho artists to come out here and exhibit, and some of them are. I think there's an acknowledgement that there's a connection between the 1970s here and between the 1950s and the 1970s. You have a connection. Jason Andrew, a curator I mentioned earlier, he works on the Jack Torkoff estate, and will often mix artists from different periods together, and you can see that there is a continuity between all these periods and today. If you just learn to kind of look past all the noise of the art world, and follow your own judgment. Really, this is a neat bridge, huh?